Okay, so I've been going down a rabbit hole lately, and I want to share something with you that I think is important. Not in a hypey AI is going to change everything way, but in a practical, here's what's being built right now and why it matters way. Everyone's talking about AI agents. You've probably heard the term. Maybe you're using some. Maybe your company is experimenting with them. But almost nobody's talking about the infrastructure underneath those agents, the stuff that makes them work in the real world. That's where a lot of confusion, a lot of bad decisions, and honestly, a lot of wasted money is happening right now. So today I want to break it down in plain English. No jargon, no fluff, just here's what's being built, here's why it matters, and here's what you should be thinking about. Let me start with a quick history lesson, because we've seen this movie before. Back around 2006 to 2010, computing shifted from companies running their own physical servers in the basement to renting computing power from the cloud. AWS, Google Cloud, all of that. And the people who understood that shift early, they built the dominant companies of the next decade. Then around 2012 to 2016, it happened again. Big, clunky, monolithic apps got broken apart into smaller specialized services, what developers call microservices, all talking to each other through APIs. APIs are like the telephone operator of the computer world. Again, the people who got it early won big. We're in that same kind of moment right now, except this time, instead of infrastructure being built for humans or for apps, infrastructure is being built for agents, software that acts autonomously on your behalf. And just like those previous shifts, most people on the outside can't tell what's real from what's hype. Bunnies on a trampoline, anyone? So let me try to give you a map. Think of it like this. An AI agent is kind of like an employee. And just like an employee, it needs a certain thing to actually do its job. It needs a workspace. It needs an identity. It needs to remember things. It needs tools. It needs to be able to pay for things. And if you have multiple employees, you need a way to coordinate them all. Those 6 things map almost perfectly to the 6 layers of what people are building right now. Let me walk through each one. Layer 1 is compute and sandboxing. This is basically, where does the agent actually run? The answer is not on your laptop and not directly in your production systems. That would be a disaster. Agents need what's called a sandbox, an isolated, safe environment where they can run code, try things, mess up, and not take down anything important. This layer is the most mature of the 6. There are already several companies with real funding and real products competing here. Some take that approach that sandboxes are disposable. Spin one up, use it, throw it away. Others build for persistence. The agent's workspace sticks around between sessions. It can install tools, save files, and come back later. Which approach you need depends on what your agents are doing. Short tasks? Disposable's fine. Long-running complex work? You probably want persistence. The good news is this layer is relatively solid. You have options. It's not perfect, but it's the furthest along. Layer 2 is identity and communication. This one's messy. The core challenge is that if an agent's going to exist on the internet and actually do things, sign up for services, send messages, authenticate with other systems, it needs some kind of identity. It needs to be somebody on the internet. And right now, the pragmatic answer that a lot of startups are building towards is just give the agent an email address. There are companies literally building email inboxes specifically for AI agents. And the reasoning makes sense. Email's the universal key to the internet. Every service requires one. Here's my concern, and I think this is worth considering. Email was designed for humans. It has all kinds of quirks and limitations that are annoying for us and potentially really problematic for agents. Rate limits, spam filters, threading issues. It's a workaround. It's not a solution. The real question should be, what does a native identity system for agents actually look like? And nobody has a clear answer yet. There are people working on blockchain-based identity, on dedicated agent-to-agent communication protocols, on other approaches, but nothing's agreed upon yet. So if you're building something that relies on email as an agent's identity layer, just know that's a pragmatic bet, not necessarily the long-term answer. Layer 3 is memory and statefulness, and this one I find really interesting. Think about it. If an agent helps you with something today, and then you come back tomorrow, does it remember what happened? Does it know who you are, what you've done before, what context matters? Right now, there are standalone companies building dedicated memory infrastructure for agents. The leading one has something like 14 billion downloads and was even selected by AWS as their exclusive memory provider. Their key insight is that memory isn't just saving a conversation log, it's active curation. Remembering what matters, forgetting what doesn't, and pulling up the right context at the right time. But there's a risk here. Every major AI lab, Anthropic, OpenAI, all of them, are working to bake memory directly into their models. If memory becomes a built-in feature, the same way search got built into ChatGPT, then these standalone memory companies could get squeezed out. The counter-argument is ownership. Do you really want a hyperscaler owning all of your agent's memory and context? That's a legitimate concern. But I don't know how this plays out, and it might come down to what the market demands. Layer 4 is tools and integrations. This one is growing the fastest. An agent is only as useful as what it can actually do. And doing things usually means connecting to other software. Your CRM, your calendar, Slack, GitHub, whatever. Every one of these connections is an integration that someone has to build and maintain. Right now, if you're building an agent, you're probably managing all of that yourself. Your own authentication flows, your own error handling, your own credential management. It's a massive headache. There are companies building managed integration layers that handle all of that for you. Pre-built connectors to hundreds of services, auth-handled, observability built in. The long-term risk here, though, is standardization. There's a protocol called MCP that could eventually become a universal standard for how agents connect to tools. If that happens, some of this middle layer becomes less necessary. But given how slowly enterprises move, I think there's a pretty long runway here. Layer 5 is provisioning and billing. This one just recently became real. Here's the problem it solves. Agents can now do almost everything involved in spinning up a software project, except for the part where you need to actually create accounts and pay for things. That's always required a human. Well, or it should, in my opinion. Stripe just launched something that closes that gap. Agents can now provision their own infrastructure, pay for services, get their own tokenized payment credentials, all without a human having to step in and enter a credit card. It sounds almost trivial when you say it out loud, but it's actually a big unlock. It means agents can be truly autonomous end-to-end in a way they couldn't before. I expect that we'll see a lot more development here, agent-to-agent payments, budget controls where an agent can spend up to a certain amount without approval, financial tracking across agent workflows. This layer is brand new, but it's clearly here to stay. And then there's layer 6, which I think is the biggest opportunity and the biggest gap in the entire stack: orchestration and coordination. Here's the scenario. You don't have one agent. You have 50 agents all working in parallel on related tasks across enterprise systems with real money on the line. How do you manage that? How do you handle failures? How do you know what they're spending? How do you catch it when one goes off the rails? Right now, the honest answer is you mostly don't. Most teams are hand-rolling their own solutions, duct-taping things together and kind of hoping for the best. The frameworks exist to spin up multi-agent workflows in a notebook. What doesn't exist yet is the infrastructure to run those reliably at enterprise scale. With health checking, failure recovery, audit trails, cost controls, and escalation paths when something inevitably goes wrong. This is the Kubernetes moment for agents. Kubernetes didn't build containers. It orchestrated them, scaled them, kept them healthy, managed their life cycles. Someone's going to do that for agents, and whoever does it, and does it well, is probably going to be one of the most valuable companies in this space. It's too early to call a winner. If I were building today, this is where I'd be paying very close attention. So what do you actually do with all of this? These are 3 things that I want to leave you with. First, reliability compounds. If your agent depends on 5 different pieces of infrastructure and each one is 97% reliable, your end-to-end reliability isn't 97%, it's more like 86. Every layer you add multiplies the risk, so be deliberate about what you depend on. Second, watch out for transitional lock-in. Some of what's being sold as agent infrastructure right now is really just a workaround until something better exists. Email as identity is a good example. Those workarounds have a cost. When something better comes along, migrating away is painful. Know which bets you're making and why. Third, agent sprawl is coming. I see it already. People get excited. They start spinning up agents for everything, and suddenly nobody knows what's running, what's spending, or what it's doing. The same thing happened with microservices in 2018. Don't let that happen to you. Invest in your orchestration layer now, even if it's imperfect. Look, you don't need to be a CTO or an engineer to care about this stuff. If agents are going to be driving business outcomes for you or your company, and they will be, you need to have at least a working understanding of what's underneath them. Because if you don't, and you're just hoping it works, well, hope's not a strategy. If this was helpful, share it with someone who's trying to figure this space out. There are a lot of people using the right buzzwords who don't actually understand what's going on underneath. And that gap is going to and is causing real problems. All right. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Get back to your weekend and